Very well, guys. So after going through all that mess with the bakes and after having everything ready, we can start to paint. So Substance Painter is actually very simple software. I'm gonna show you a couple of shortcuts right here. I actually do have a little software that I use. Hey, where is it? Oh, it's gone. I thought I had it. I had a little software to show the keys, but that's fine. So F1 is the basic viewport where we can see our 3D view and our 2D view. You move with Alt and click, middle click, and right click. All of those three clicks are the movement. This is actually more standard in other 3D softwares. Blender is the one that does it slightly different with Shift, but this is the thing where we're gonna see. So here's we got our UV map, and here we have, of course, our asset. All of these things right here are materials that we can use. So for instance, if I were to grab, let's say this, I don't know, like this stylized and natural ground, I can just like drag this, drop it right here, and as you can see, what's going to happen is that texture is now going to be projected throughout all of my asset. So the way this works is very similar to Photoshop. We're going to have layers over here, and we're going to be using all of these materials over here to generate, well, the different effects that we want on our object. So I'm going to go here. For instance, this is the smart materials. Let's go to materials. These are the basic materials that we have right here on our elements, just like metal rust, leather skin. It actually seems like they updated the materials because this seemed new. I don't remember all of this, guys. Anyway, so let's say for instance this carbon fiber, right? So if I grab this carbon fiber and drop it into the element, you're gonna see that we now have a carbon fiber like texture applied to every single part of our element. So we're gonna be playing with layers over here to create the different texture like things that we want on our scene. Um, One of the things that we're going to do here, I want to explain, is that we're going to be working with something called a PBR system. So some of you might already be familiar with PBR texturing, but if you are not, let me just give you a quick overview of what it is. PBR texturing is something called physically based render texturing. And what this does is it generates materials using specific maps to make sure that the textures and the materials react properly to light inside of engines, such as Unity, Unreal, Blender, Maya, all of the softwares. So physically based render uses something called the metallic roughness workflow, where we first decide what kind of texture we're going to be using, and then we decide if that material is going to be a metal or a non-metal. And depending on that, the shading on the material is going to change. Let me show you real quick. I'm going to use this little bucket right here, which is a fill layer. It just fills a new layer. And down here, as you can see, we have properties: color, height, rough, metal, and normal. All of them are active, and we can modify those properties right here. So let's say we want to make this a blue axe. So we just go to color, select blue, and paint the axe blue. And that's going to give us the blue color of the axe. Let's say that then we want this blue color to be really rough, really like a matte, right? So we go to roughness, and if we increase the roughness, the color is going to look flatter. And if we decrease the roughness, the color is going to look a lot more plasticky, more shiny. Then we can change the metallic. We can make this object be very metallic, or we can make this object be non-metallic. So those are the three things that we're going to be changing pretty much on all of the materials that we have right here. We're going to see, or we're going to tell the materials, hey, I want you to be shinier or not as shiny. I want you to be metal or non-metal. I want you to be this color or that color. And the cool thing about this materials is that Substance pretty much does this for us. Like, we don't have to think about all of these elements. So for instance, if I look for rust, you're gonna see that we have metal rust right here. And if I bring this in and drop it, you're gonna see that we have this very nice rust effect. So the roughness and everything is already being taken care of. What can we change? Well, every single material that we add will have properties. And for instance, right here on the substance, on the rust color, we can change, well, the color of the rust. We can go for like a green rust or like a blue rust. Imagine this is bronze, so we could go for like this sort of like patina. We can change the roughness, make it really rough or less rough, depending on what type of rust we want. We can change the color variation. Look at that, beautiful colors there for the rust. We can change the grain intensity. So there's a lot of things that we can do with all of the materials that we have right here. For instance, if we look for paint, we don't have paint. I'm telling you guys that they changed this because like literally 1 week ago I was using this and they were not like this were not the materials that were here, but they're really cool. They're a little bit more realistic than what we had before. So for instance, this one, metal galvanized. Okay, so we bring the metal galvanized material and look at how cool this sort of like texture we can get on our element. And we can change things again. We can make this really rough. We can make it really shiny, like super chrome. We can change the color variation. Can change the metal color, go through like a red color, and there's a lot of things that we're going to be able to do with these elements right here. So that's the first thing that we need to understand. We're going to be working on this 2D view or 3D view. By the way, F2 is 3D view, F3 is 2D view, and then F1 is double view. So I'm going to go to F2 because we're going to be working on the 3D view quite a bit. So we're going to be using all of these materials along with some of the tools that I'm going to be showing you to generate the different things that we want here for our element. Now, I'm going to show you one of the most important things about Substance Painter right now, which are masks. So we're going to do a very basic like color segmentation of the element. I'm going to look for metal. You can see that we have metal sandblasted, we got metal foil, we got metal galvanized, and metal brush. I think metal brush is probably the one that like fits the most with the current element. So I'm going to bring this and drop it right here. And you can see we got this metal brush effect. I'm going to go to the metal color and I'm going to make this a sort of like a darker color. Something like that. And I'm still a little bit confused because I do feel like I'm missing some. Can't create erasers from the Baker internal error. No, that's not it. Because again, I feel like we're missing some. There we go. No, those are smart materials. I'll explain what smart materials are later. That's fine. So we got this stylized. Actually, that stylized raw metal looks a little bit better for what we want. So I'm going to bring this stylized raw metal right here, which is going to give us an interesting texture, as you can see pretty much everywhere. And once we have that, we can change the color of the metal to something like a little bit darker. Now, one of the things that we're going to be doing is we're going to be, again, creating masks so that we can only paint on the specific parts that we have. So in this case, I'm going to press Ctrl G to create a group, and this group is going to be called my metals. So all of the things that are going to be metal are going to be inside this group. I'm going to right click the group and I'm going to create a black mask. So the black mask allows me to paint which areas I want to be metal and which areas I don't want to be metal. However, as you can see here, it's going to take me forever to try to paint things like specifically. So there's a couple of methods that we can use. The first method is using the ID mask that I showed you before, remember? So right click and we're going to add color selection on the mask. This is on the mask. So we right click on the mask and we're going to add a color selection. And with this color selection, we can pick a color and we can pick the blue color. And as you can see, all of the objects that are blue are going to be filled with this metal effect. So very, very quickly, we can select that object. That's one way to do it. I'm going to show you one later on when we start like creating more variation between the different parts of the metal. But this one's the first one. Now for the blade's going to be metal, even though it's going to be glowing. So I'm still going to add like another metal here. I'm going to make this metal a bit like lighter. So let's go for this sort of like silver effect. I'm going to add a black mask and I'm going to call this blade. Sorry, not black mask. First, I'm going to Ctrl G to create a group and I'm going to call this group blade. Right click, add a black mask, and on that black mask, I'm going to right click and add a color selection, and I'm going to select another color, which in this case is going to be green. And look at that. Instead of having to go in there and paint each individual little stone of the axe, we can just like select the whole thing. And as you can see, we get the very nice effect ready to go. So finally, I'm going to look for, let's see if we have like a rock material. We have this cracked rock, which looks, yeah, that actually looks very, very good. So I'm going to use this cracked rock at the very end or at the very top. I'm not sure if you guys have access to this one though. So I don't want to use something that you guys don't have access to. So let me look for stone. I think this is stylized stone or the stone slate. I think you should have access to this stone slate because I don't remember downloading it off. So I'm going to use that stone slate. There we go. So again, I'm going to Control G. This is going to be the stone layer. Add a black mask. Right click on the black mask and we're going to add a color selection to pick a color, and this is going to be the red color. So as you can see, we've successfully filled all of the elements with the different like materials, the base materials that we're going to be doing to build up the textures that are going to be generating our element. So this is how we do it. Like technically we could export this and we'll be like super, like we'll be good to go, right? However, there's a couple of things that I want to fix. For instance, you can see there's a little bit of anti-aliasing right there. That's because we need a base layer at the very bottom. I'm just going to create a new layer. It's going to be a dark layer, like a black layer right there. That should alleviate a little bit of that. But we're going to be filling all of this with the glow effect later on, so I'm not too worried about it. One more thing, every single element that we add, for instance, you can see the rock texture here looks good, but it's actually going in a different direction than the sculpting of our element. So every single thing that we add, such as this stone slate, will have some UV transformations that we can do. This will not transform the UVs of our object. It will rather transform the UVs of the texture itself. So for instance, this one, we can start rotating it. And as you can see, we can find a rotation that goes a little bit more in line with the shape of our element right there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. As you can see, this makes the whole thing look way better, and our axe is getting ready to be textured. This is the way I like to start when I'm doing this sort of projects. I like to segmentize. Is that the proper word? I think so. I like to divide my elements into the different categories that I'm going to be working with, and then I'm going to start focusing on specific materials to generate the effect that we want. So that's it for this one, my friends. I'm going to stop right here. Make sure to get to this point. Make sure to create your little groups and your selections so that we can have a very nice place to start. And I think we're going to start with the stone first. We're going to do the volcano stone first because it's probably the easiest one to understand in terms of materials. And then we're going to start working on the different parts like the metals and the blades. So yeah, hang on tight and I'll see you back on the next one.